Introduction to the Atlantis, Order of the Self. By Alan Lee Whiteman. The Ka citizens of Atlantis were superhumans, of a sort. They were essentially manufactured by the Nephilim as a byproduct of the Nephilim's efforts to migrate their entire population off of their travel planet to Earth. Genetic engineering was the critical factor in the creation of the Ka Atlanteans, and the Nephilim got the technology for doing so from their masters, the Pleiadeans. The Pleiadeans uplifted the Nephilim, and the Nephilim uplifted barbaric elements of early man and in the process created the Ka Atlanteans. For most of the early life of the Ka, the superhumans were occupied with the habitat construction efforts for the Nephilim. But over time, things settled down, particularly when the Nephilim were away on their still sun-orbiting travel planet, and some of the Ka, being uplift of the Nephilim, decided to experiment with specialty life creation. Most of that activity was a pastime effort, and the focus then was on engineering the growth of small animals of the size of mice or rats or pets. As the centuries wore on, the focus turned towards larger animals, some aquatic creatures, and some of the air. In time, as they got better at the practice, the attention turned towards making a better human than the local humans that came to visit from time to time. The genetic engineering interest covered most of the 30 or so family lines of the society, but a few of the lines, even the more so-called religious lines, joined in with the process, and an internal life form of its own began to emerge. The activity had an internal name, loosely translated as the Order of the Self, seemingly innocuous, but ultimately the underlying cause for the destruction of the island and all of its inhabitants. Funny, isn't it? A social group springs up and ultimately an entire society crashes and burns. Members of the order sought to compete with their understanding of God. To make the better man, that became the goal, a God goal. One of my past life friends put it better this way.
In the beginning there was God and all was well. Man became a toy. And he began to experiment with seed. Yes, that is the making of animals of their own design. To make the better animal was considered a God goal. Could one compete with God in the order of creation? There were many experiments, some fatal, some of value. None everlasting. Not too unlike the pilgrims you think of in that silly movie you saw last week. But that was the right idea. After a while the creation of animals became passé and of declining interest, and the creation of a man-self animal became the goal. The building of machines was not a goal, but a tool at best. To build the better mousetrap man, yes, that became the goal.
Those in spirit, light friends of the local deity, watched this development, with alarm. For you see, creation of a better man included by default, no creation of a man or woman child with life challenges, physical ailments, behavioral problems, the equivalent of Down syndrome, perhaps even elements of autism. And this really bothered those in spirit. For their view and purpose of humans was all about a place on earth for spiritual development of man, and for some that means choosing to come into incarnation with challenges to overcome. So, spirit sought to undo the growth of the order. And consequently the growth in what was considered to be aberrant specialty life creation by subversion of the order through dilution. This was by incarnating into the order, souls who shared similar convictions. The idea was, get our people in place, and they will undo, hamper, or stop the growth of the order. But all of their like-minded incarnation efforts failed, successively so. For you see, the order had a life of its own, and it was stronger than the life of spirit. Was it evil incarnate? Is something seductive necessarily evil? It is a tough question. After many generations of trying to dilute the order membership, spirit came to the regretful conclusion that the only effective path forward was, to put it harshly, pull the plug on the entire Atlantis creation, and by consequence on the Nephilim themselves, and to a lesser degree on the human population of Earth. So, why would pulling the plug on Atlantis be of a consequence to the regular human population of Earth? Atlantis was off by itself, discounting the outer satellite camps and such, in the Red Sea, so a crashed island ought not to be of that much bother, right? Well, no. Remember those pesky alien emotion harvesting machines situated down underground in the vicinity of human population centers? With Atlantis crashed and gone, there would no longer be any way for regular servicing of the machines, including the removal of filled canisters. The machines were of truly excellent alien design and manufacture, lasting far longer than anything of tech made by man, even in modern day, and they continued to run and operate on their own. But with no empty containers to fill, all their harvested product just floated away, kind of like a rainwater harvesting tank overflowing. But the real problem was the already filled canisters, otherwise waiting for removal and transport off-planet. They were the real problem. Despite being of excellent alien design and manufacture, they were never intended or designed for long-term storage use. And, in any case, the product had what we call shelf life, not particularly long, and the product began to spoil and in time turned not just rancid, but toxic, and in further time turned into packaged chaos. Well, as you might guess, the canisters began to leak, and toxic chaos seeped out and began to rise up into the earth and pollute the environment. The seeping started some 3,000 years ago and began to infect the human societies in the local area, still largely the Middle Eastern countries of modern-day nationalities. The schism-inducing aspects of the machines still worked, with no one to turn them off. Combine what looks like runaway machines, no conductor or engineer at the throttle, rising toxic chaos, warring nations, and what do you get? Well, put your mind to work and look at current-day international news. What is the major conflict in the Middle East now? Is there really an end to it in sight?